The Israelites says, what wonderful words he has spoken. But then when he applied that scripture, to the lepers and to the outsiders and to the outcasts, the Israelite, the Jewish worldviews couldn't handle it. And they sought to actually throw him out. And people like N.T. Wright says that from that time onwards, Jesus begins to speak in parables. And many of these parables challenge our underlying worldviews. The way we interpret parable is not just to universalize it, but every parable is speaking to the Jewish worldview. And parables are tools that transform the Jewish worldviews. So we don't have time, for example, Luke 15, the parables of the lost son. We universalize it, and that's fine. For evangelism, the lost son came to him, to the Lord, to the Father, but really, Jesus was challenging Israel that you thought you have the inheritance, but these Samaritans, these outcasts, who do not inherit the kingdom of God. And after the parables, the Jews begin to talk among themselves. Who's the elder brother? Who's the younger brother? And I think in world mission today, we are seeing a massive transformation where God is raising new people of God. And hopefully we will indicate a bit of that, how through the poor, through the marginalized, through the diaspora, that the future of world evangelization is no longer from the center to the margin. But God is doing these new things. And I think within the UK, all the more within the London area. Because to be witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the world. But actually the ends of the world are now here, isn't it? We traditionally, our missiology separate world mission overseas and home mission. And we still do that in our Baptist family. But I think God is doing a new thing. Yeah. And when I first came, I have shared this with Phil and Hanny when he came, and then the pandemic came, and we are almost just firefighting, we are frozen. And my prayer is that whatever God has used us in these challenging days, in bringing renewal, that even in this small time of sharing, that you're kindly, generously giving your time for BMS. We hope that God will unite us afresh, renew us to these new ways of doing mission, not just overseas, but also in London and the future. With that, let me show just a brief 2 minutes video. And what is mission? Just refresh us and what BMS is doing.
Mission.
Overseas.
What is mission?
It's over 200 years of matching God's word with deed. It's our storied Baptist history and a world still in need.
We're shaped by our past as we look to the future. It's you and it's us.
It's we working together as BMS World Mission, uniting believers to change the world.
Will you join us?
In over 30 countries, from cities to the most remote places, we tackle injustice and suffering in desperate places.
We work with refugees and those forced to leave home.
We share the good news of Jesus where it's never been known.
And why do we do all that we do?
To make real the fullness of life and the hope that knowing Jesus can bring.
Changing the world is no small task, but through prayer, through partnership, through giving, we'll do more than all we can imagine or ask.
Together, we let children be children by building pathways to school.
We care for God's planet and sow, grow, reap food for all.
We deliver aid when disaster hits and help prepare for the worst.
We plant churches and seedlings to nourish spiritual thirst.
We train local medics to heal lives marked by deep strife.
We see communities flourish and improve quality of life. Together we can do all this.
And to do it all, we need you.
Because while God calls us, we'll answer.
until His work is through.
Thank you. And now I'll invite my colleagues, both Kwame, Azam, and Peter Oyugi to come forward. And we have a roving mind, yes. Well, first I introduce Kwame. Some of you know Kwame. Kwame is our overseas team leader responsible for evangelism and discipleship. Kwame, you joined BMS about 2 years?
Correct. That's
Yes.
about 2 years ago, 2019.
2019. And you're from the London area.
That's
Yes,
correct.
yes.
Yeah, Trinity Baptist Church.
Yes, and so you're responsible for leadership in the area of evangelism and discipleship at BMS. Maybe share with us a little bit about your role and what you have seen God been doing in this area.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kang-San.
Yeah.
And thank you, LBA. I mean, this is a really powerful question, and it just speaks to my heart, and I'm wondering how many minutes do I have?
Oh, yeah.
But
Preach it, brother.
I'll keep it brief. So BMS, we work in the least evangelized places in the world. And we deem those places to be less than 5% recognized followers of Jesus. And it's been amazing, phenomenal work of God. I'm reminded of this passage, Romans chapter 1, verse 16. I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation and to all people. I paraphrase that. And so we've been seeing with our partners God working in most amazing and unusual ways. They're using various approaches to church planting and bringing the gospel to the frontiers of their communities and countries, places where there is no Christian witness. But among those approaches is one I'd like to highlight, which is the disciple-making movement. And it's been amazing. Out of that principle, it's just very basic, investing in the few people, what Christ has invested in us. And they will go and invest in the few, and the few will invest in the few. There's the Timothy 2:2:2 principle. And through that, we're seeing new churches planted in places where it's really difficult to share the gospel openly. In India, for example, we had over 1,000 house churches planted just between November and January through the Christmas outreach program. The statistics for the whole of 2021 is just mind-blowing. But in Thailand, similarly. However, the context is different, but the principles are transferable. And my sometimes reflection is, of the things we're seeing God do in India, in Thailand, in Bangladesh, in the Middle East, in Tunisia, how do we bring some of these best practices, lessons learned, to encourage and to catalyze, to strengthen our Baptist family in the UK? We're extremely grateful for your investment in BMS, your support in prayer, and in the sending of church members. And I would like you to think, how can we create space where we can share some of these principles, these practices we've seen God use in other places to encourage yourselves. So thank you very much.
That's wonderful, Kwame. I think I often feel, when our Lord says, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail over it. And we live in a global and interconnected world. Actually, the statistics of Christianity, churches have not declined globally, except it is growing in different parts of the world. And it's a bit of this Acts 1:8, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the world. And He is bringing this transformation. Thank you, Kwame. Excellent. Kwame is a man passionate about evangelism and discipleship. And when I first came, one pastor came to me and said, has BMS lost our confidence in the gospel? And I hope you see this investment that we see discipleship, evangelism, and mission is still central to us. Next, I'd like to introduce dear friend Peter Oyugi. Many of you have prayed for that position, that part of this what we call the shift that God is bringing BMS, is that we are no longer centered in the UK, but how do we catalyze and participate with the growing mission movements in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And we, through the pandemic, we are forced to close Wally's House, and out of that investment, we say we are no longer just training mission workers from the UK to the rest of the world, but in the next 10 years, we will invest and come alongside the growing mission movements in Latin America, Asia, and Africa. And part of that is that the Board of Trustees have invested this new movement where we are recruiting a new director for intercultural learning and collaboration, where the learning is also, like Kwame said, bringing back to the UK, not just working overseas. And for the first time in the sense that the director will be located in a global south city. And out of that, in God's goodness, Peter has just been appointed to be our new director for intercultural learning and collaboration. Peter, but you have served as a pastor in multicultural church for a large part of the time in London. Of course, background, you come from Kenya, work in student work, and Peter has been instrumental in a number of collaboration, has spoken in many major conferences, Urbana and other places. So you like an able expositor. I would like to commend my dear friend Peter to you. But tell us a little bit about your time as a church, as a pastor in London, because we are among friends here.
Okay, well, it's good to meet you all, and greetings to you tonight. It's a joy to join you in this pastors' meeting. I spent 10 years as a pastor here in the UK, having been invited from Kenya, and I know that as pastors, it's hard work. And I empathize with pastors and pray for pastors because you carry a lot of burdens of people. And one of the experiences I had seeking to grow a multi-ethnic church to represent the surrounding areas. If your church is in a very monocultural area, that's a different story. But it is in a mixed area. The church, I have a strong belief that the church should reflect that area. And it doesn't come easily. And just a few lessons. I think it's so important that we recognize that God's mission is for the whole church. And the challenge for us as church leaders, how do we make the whole church excited about mission? Especially when you're overwhelmed with pastoral issues and people problems and people difficulties, health issues. And my challenge and encouragement through the years is that pastors need to be people of faith. God is still looking for people who will trust Him and help with compassion, move the congregation beyond just the immediate struggles and see the power of God that works through our limitations to bring glory to His name. And that's the story of mission. And I think that's those are some of the few lessons I learned. But also it's good to try new things. I think as Christians, we are afraid of trying new things. I just find it just wonderful. Try new things. And God, some of them will fail, but we need to be trying. It's better you fail trying than try to fail. Does that make sense?
I know you're involved in quite a number of other work, but one of the work, you're a founding leader on the Center for the Majority World Christians in the UK. Tell us a little bit about the passion behind this work within the UK context.
Yes, we started it in 2013, and basically it was trying to encourage pastors and church leaders and missionaries who have come from outside the UK and to serve in the UK. First of all, to help provide encouragement and support. It can be a lonely journey, especially in a cross-cultural setting. But also to try and bring training that will help them be contextually relevant. Dealing with the postmodern worldview when we come from other worldviews is not always straightforward. But it was also to create space for dialogue between what we call host culture churches and many of these ethnic or diaspora churches we find. Diaspora churches get planted all the time. I moved to Kent, Ashford, where I live, 7 or 8 years ago. In that time, it's amazing to see how many ethnic churches have been planted. And one of the reasons is that churches are not welcoming. That's a story for another day. Evangelical churches are not welcoming to outsiders sometimes, even though we think we are. And this space within the center is to try and help create that dialogue when we can truly reflect Christ, help the people coming in, prepare to engage with both the migrant congregations and communities, but also with the host cultures, and provide a space where we can talk about these issues. So over the years, we've had some robust and good discussions. We have learned some lessons, challenged each other and prayed together. And it's work that is ongoing.
Thank you. I wish we have more time, but please invite Kwame as well as Peter to your churches to share more, because you are also involved in many other areas. Thank you. For the remaining time, I'm going to show a slide here and just give an update and then allow for a group discussion later. So we have looked at the short video on what is mission in the diversities of work that BMS has been involved in. We are not a development agency. I would say we are a church mission agency, but engaging in integral mission in over 30 countries. Our uniqueness is in the way that we are able, on your behalf, to serve in difficult contexts. In this quiet and not tape, we work in Afghanistan, in North Korea, in Bangladesh, in Nepal, in Chad, in Guinea, where not only we are passionate about working in countries where there are less than 5% Christians, but we look at the global multi-development poverty index, and we invest your investment, your gifts towards 10 out of 20 poorest countries in the world. So these have been our two main areas: the least evangelized, most marginalized. But in the new strategy, we say that the third prong, a third focus, is what we call people on the move. Looking at refugee highways from sub-Saharan Africa, what are the things that we can do at destination countries, following the refugee highway towards North Africa and into Europe. So North Africa as well as Europe is increasingly a third major work. But what we are passionate about is to say the whole church. We cannot sustain mission if we just come from the Western church. We need the whole church. And this has been a big strategy that the future of world evangelization will rely on the quality of this collaboration between churches in the UK, diaspora churches, but also churches in Africa, Asia, and Latin America to send missionaries. That means we are planting missional movements, not just planting churches, building collaboration. And our prayer, increasingly, we will also see us receiving mission workers. Already we have that, but how BMS can begin to make this shift. This is not easy in the sense that we are shaped by our past. This year, we will celebrate 230 years of Baptist mission history. And I hope that we are just excited about how many missions have started and have declined or died in God's goodness out of the British Baptist mission movement, that we are still here serving the Lord. As we look into the future, we say that the future of world evangelization lies into this massive shift of the thinking, the worldview, the mindset. We may be the elder brother, they may be the younger brother, and we are all sharing in the inheritance of the gospel. Now that's not easy. That's hard work. And in a small way, you have seen, when I came and shared this passion with you, I hope you remember 4 years ago, I said, pray for us. Because the Baptist mission movement had tremendous gift in humilities. Even if you want to share some of the mistakes we made. Because now the African, Nigerian mission, Ghanaian mission, Korean missions, Filipino missions are growing. But if they have not learned from the mistakes of the past, they will repeat it. So we still have a role, whether the world likes it or not. I believe that the British Baptist mission still have a contribution into the future. And part of the work, in December, I visited in Guinea-Bissau, the hospital, and the vision is not just us sending doctors, nurses, medical workers, but also from the region. From Egypt, I met this Egyptian evangelist working in the hospital. So increasingly, the future of mission, of BMS, is no longer white. We still need white people, but it will be multicultural. People from multi-ethnicity, not just from Britain, where you need to be British to join BMS. Today, increasingly, the new movement is that we are having a global look at how we can send within the regions, cross-culturally, and this has been the new passion. Of course, it is a challenging time. It is a Kairos moment. We feel that changing the world is no small task. And sometimes our African and Asian partners still look to the West for leadership. But we say that the responsibility for world evangelization lies in all of us. BMS will continue to send workers from the UK, but the rapid growth will be for us to co-send workers from around the world. So we remind ourselves what unites us is our commitment to the gospel. And Kwame has said we are reviewing all our work to see that we send people among the least evangelized region, where there are probably 1 or 2% Christians. We work, for example, in Thailand, 70 million people, 200 years of Western mission movements, less than 1%, about 0.2% are Christians. So we think about Bangladesh, we think about Muslim world, so mission is still with us. I think the danger for us in the UK setting is because we have Muslims and Buddhists and Hindus within our midst. Yes, mission on our doorstep, but we still have a responsibility to participate into the work of the least evangelized region. So the new vision has been to ask, this is consulting you, maybe shortly you can help us think. Part of the worry of my trustees and our funding group is how can we see this shift, where traditionally British churches, our link missionaries are British, going overseas, and we will continue to do that. But we are not getting the numbers. But the real rapid growth of mission movements are coming from Africa, Asia, and Latin America. So we're working with Latin American, Peruvian Christians to co-send with Brazilian Christians across region, going to Guinea, for example, from Latin America to Guinea. This is a brother from the Mizoram Baptist Church. We brought them for a visit a few years ago, and they were shocked. The question towards the end of their time, 3 years ago, they said, where are the young people in Britain? Because they are still thinking, we BMS are the leader, are the one that should be giving them the resources. And we say, actually, mission responsibility belongs to the whole church. No longer from the center to the margin, but God is bringing a new thing. So with the Mizoram Baptist churches, they are having this ambition to send missionaries within Asia. So this is a brother from Mizoram Baptist. Together with BMS, we will send them to work with the Buddhists in Cambodia, a country. So increasingly you see this is a movement, but we realize it will take time. And we really want to ask London Baptist ministers, help us, because we will continue to send UK mission workers, but can you envision with Zoom technology, we can't always bring them here, how can you then partner with co-supporting workers from around the world? So this is one big shift of the new vision, and as I mentioned, we see the big need about why are the refugees coming to UK, and that will continue to grow. And BMS feel that this will be a major area that we would like to invest on. So together with European Baptist Federation, of course BMS work in sub-Saharan Africa, looking at the context why refugees are coming to Britain or Europe. We are looking at the refugee highways on transit, working with churches to improve capacity, but also when they come to Europe, we have identified areas in Greece and in other contexts. How can European churches see that part of the mission is God is bringing the diaspora, not just as objects for mission, but the very subject of mission. That God is bringing the gospel with them. Together with these refugees, many are King Christians. So hospitality of European UK churches, how do we reach out to this diaspora will be another area. That is a new area, and we will be sharing more to you. This is a particular work that we identify. So we continue to tackle injustice and suffering in desperate places. We are just waiting for Afghanistan to reopen, and the anticipation is at some point we'll be able to go back to Afghanistan. But there are many other aspects of injustices. We have identified the two main cross-cutting themes. One is what we call gender justice or injustices among women, young children in many cultures. And Annette Natando, one of our key leaders who will be heading this work on gender justice, but also creation care, Laura Lee Loring, who's working in Peruvian Amazonian jungle and seeking integral mission. So creation care is another area. So why we do all that we do is really to be able to see that Jesus can be shared through multi-ethnic diversities, both through Western missionaries, but also increasingly through local mission movements. So we are excited about the future of the British Baptist Mission Society. What we want then would be to ask your prayers, for example, changing structures and changing cultures. We are internationalizing our BMS Board of Trustees. We are no longer just British, but we will invite international representation. We are in a process of consultation, the BMS Council, the different regional association. We are the stakeholders of BMS, but we want to open up some places for our international representation. I mean, BMS is still a British Baptist movement, but in the governance area, we want to invite our partners to participate with us. So this is a process of work, and we now have this appointment of the Director for Intercultural Learning to be based in the Global South and bringing learning to UK context. So there are major changes, but I think some of the things we would like you to help us, maybe for 10-15 minutes of small group discussion, is to look at, are we missing certain things? Are we bringing this transformation and culture change in BMS? What are the central things we need to keep? But in order to apply it, we need your wisdom, the issues that we need to be thinking about. But the key thing would be for us to say, UK Baptists and our international partners working in greater collaboration, where we want to invite the voices of the global church. So the question, you can simplify it, but just the key thing will be, what are the key roles and functions that the local churches can do better? We need you to preserve that, because we are part of the Baptist Church Mission Society. But then what are the areas that BMS could do best? And when we combine this with the world church, what will be this new relationship? at leadership and at local churches. So that is a question we'd like us to just discuss, but you may have other things that you like to bring into the small group. So if we have 10 minutes where we can pick 2 or 3 areas that you think, from what you have heard, what are the changes in mission that the local churches and the BMS can participate, with the idea that the world church will increasingly play a more central role, that together, that we work together as part of God's mission people. So if I request wherever you are, maybe, and then we'll have the last 10 minutes for any interaction out of this discussion.
Yes.
We were saying in our group that one of the things we've discovered is that people will give to specific projects rather than to nebulous organisation. And there may be some mileage in actually a specific church here sponsoring a specific church or project.
Yeah.
My church, when I was pastoring, we built a church in Zimbabwe. And we got pictures back and they could see, that there 50 quid had bought 15 bricks or something,
Yes.
And I think people, that way, there is a partnership.
It is.
And I think that to build into that, you also have to, the people who are getting the benefit also have a responsibility to keep in touch with the people providing, so that that partnership is built on a much deeper level.
That's right, yeah. And increasingly you're right. We find that from time to time I think some of the harvest appeal, we're looking at Nepal, looking at a major development project in the villages. And then I've shown the picture. I think another work will be to identify a project among the refugee work in Greece, and we will share this. But I think that is always a challenge. We are a mission of people. People give to projects, but then how do we then see that the work brings transformation on the longer term? But you are right. We have done research where we look at evangelism as a major project and people don't give, not that we don't value it, but when there's a specific area, and then people will respond. One more, yes?
I think I've just noticed, because now we are much more comfortable using things like Zoom, it has opened up possibilities that, I'm friends with David Michelle, so something they're there in the church, they may well be preaching.
Yes.
You can have conversations, you can interview, and I think as making better use of this technology, and you can send quick WhatsApps and providing they've got internet, I think it's a real benefit. It
is, but despite all the challenges of pandemic, the pandemic has really opened the whole mindset. I think the future for BMS will be an interconnected offices and teams, but also to be able to adopt a mission worker from Africa, Asia, Latin America, and to be connected with the church. We could see part of the massive learning where no longer we are serving them, but we can bring resources, good teaching, good stories from the world church back to the church. So, but this will take time, both for BMS, but also for local churches to be able to say, actually, we are one body. God has blessed us with rich resources. And the direction is not just from the west to the rest, but also we learn from the margin, the difficulties, the challenges. So we do pray the Lord will open up these new opportunities. Last comment before we go for hot drinks. British culture, Sorry, if I do this in Asia, the Baptist churches will disown me.
I was just so interested that you were referring to the fact that communities on the move is going to be one of your the new focus, and just reflecting on the fact that's going to be such a massive issue, particularly with the changes in our climate, and the way that's going to be so important, therefore, to be quite nimble and quite responsive to new situations developing very quickly. We've seen in the last few weeks, you know, some of these terrible floods that have happened that have struck communities that are often in those most impoverished situations, and so the speed with which we can respond may be so important.
It is. And we seldom talk about this, but this is one example that we are a specialized agency on behalf of the church. You know, to respond quickly. We have the disaster relief work, and we are able to respond quite quickly. When the cyclone that's happening, we are already in touch. You know, so I think part of our prayer is how we don't get bogged down into heavy structure. And we have been talking about being an agile community. You know, what does that mean to do that? But we really need your prayers. We hope that the Lord will bless us together in our partnership. And then thank you again for your support and your commitment.